This story happened a few years ago. I was in my early 20s and was studying in Paris, France. I was going home from uni. I usually took a short bus ride and walked the rest of the way home. That day, though, I felt slightly uncomfortable. I could sense some guy looking very intensely at me. I was used to the occasional unpleasant, unsolicited gazes, but this time his gaze felt beastly. It's hard to explain why, but I felt like I was prey being stalked. I decided because of this to get off the bus a few stops early. I wanted to avoid him and didn't want him to see where I usually got off the bus. Like I learned in the movies, I waited until someone else pressed the stop button and waited until the very last moment to stand up and leave. I did not notice him getting off the bus. Just as I was beginning to feel the relief of having escaped an uncomfortable situation, I looked over my shoulder, only to see that there he was, just a few meters behind. I had the distressing feeling that his eyes looked away just the moment I turned to see him. I walked into a shop, took my phone, and pretended to be making a call. When I couldn't see him anymore, I exited from the shop and made my way home as fast as I could. I kept looking back into the busy street. I zigzagged, crossed the street at every crossing. Finally, after not noticing him for a while, I believed that him getting off at the same stop as me was just a coincidence. When I reached my building, though, I looked back one last time, and there he was. His alarming gaze was on me, smirking. I ran up to my apartment, climbing the stairs 4 at a time. I reached the top floor, squeezed through my door, locked it, and froze. My intercom was ringing. Don't ask me why I picked it up. I regretted it the very moment I did. I could hear the opposite flat intercom ringing as well. He had pressed all of the buttons one by one, hoping someone would open. But now, he knew my name. Gabrielle? Oh shit. I felt like a deer in the headlights, frozen. Open the door, please, he said in a pleading voice. I just really want to talk to you. Somehow, I couldn't move or speak. Hey, come to the window, he added. Look at me. You'll see I'm not a bad guy. Something clicked in my head. He wanted to locate my apartment in the building. I was not going to make that mistake. I hung up in shock. I waited by the door without moving for what seemed like hours. When I finally managed to calm myself down, I called my long-distance boyfriend. He told me to call the police immediately. So why didn't I call them? I don't really know. Today, it would be the very first thing I would think to do. The fear of making a big deal out of something not important, perhaps. What an idiot I was for thinking that. I called my best friend instead. I just didn't want to feel alone. I told her all about it, and after a while I felt better and safe. We started laughing together. Suddenly, though, the intercom rang once again. 2 hours had passed since I'd come home and the incident had first begun. I answered it. Gabrielle, said the voice. Open, please. I still remember the chills I felt. He was still there. He had been there all this time. I was silent, petrified. He was silent, but I could sense his trepidation. Gabrielle, let me in. I'm so thirsty. Just at least give me a glass of water. This broke the tension. I hung up. Curled up in a corner, literally in recovery position, terrified. I waited. I was scared to make a sound. I knew he couldn't hear me from the hall, but I was scared to even breathe. The intercom rang again and again. I didn't answer this time. I crouched on the sofa and fell asleep in exhaustion. I heard the intercom ring one more time in the middle of the night. I woke up that morning, afraid to even leave my apartment. I called my dad, who came to pick me up. There was no one in the hall, but there was a note in my mailbox. Gabrielle, I really am a nice guy. You should have opened to me. We immediately went to the nearest police station. The police listened and of course told me that I should not hesitate to call them next time. My dad called a locksmith to install digicode on the building door the same day and wrote a message to each of my neighbors asking them not to open the door to anyone they didn't expect. After that, he sat in the cafe in front of my building with 2 friends every evening for more than a week. I never saw the stalker again. After this episode, I used a different route to and from uni every day. I kept my phone tightly in my hand and looked back every few meters. Even today, I'm still very observing of my surroundings. I never answer the door if I'm not expecting someone. So, people, if you ever find yourself in any kind of uncomfortable situation, call the police. Don't be an idiot like me. Be safe, everyone. Sorry in advance for the long post. I just need to get this off my chest. My fiancé, 27 and male, and I, 23 and female, are soon to be married and are remodeling an old family home. We started working on the house about 2 or 3 months ago. My fiancé bought a bunch of power tools to use on the house to renovate. It's been sitting with nobody in it for over a year now. Keep in mind, this house is also located in a fairly rural area. A few houses and trailers here and there, but not too much traffic overall. We have a rodent problem as well, and have been setting up some traps to try and catch them. 3 weeks ago, my fiancé went to check the traps, and we had a rat that was still alive. Long story short, he didn't want to take care of it, so he left. I got off work at 9 p.m. and went over to the house to take care of that rat. It was raining, and my mom and brother came with me. I went to the back door. It was wide open, and water was blowing into the house. I was extremely pissed. I thought my fiancé had left the door open when he left. I shut it and quickly finished my business there. I asked my fiancé why he'd left the door open, and he claimed right away he didn't. I called bullshit and left it at that. It didn't ever occur to me that somebody might have just possibly made a quick getaway. Fast forward to today. My fiancé and I went to our house to throw a whole bunch of trash and stuff into the dumpster we rented. When we went inside, we immediately noticed that some things were missing. Drills, sanders. We realized that they had been stolen. We called my mother-in-law and tell her about it. She said to make a police report. What scares me so much about this is that everything began to click with the rat trap incident. Somebody had been scoping us out. I would go to our house by myself on many occasions and always get those creeps where you feel like you're being watched. My little brother even remarked that he felt watched there and asked if we were sure nobody was in there while we were gone. Well, I noticed today that when I was there alone, my dog was acting very nervous and suspicious. She wasn't running around and playing like she usually does, and she didn't want me to go to the backyard or wooded area. I trusted her and my gut feeling. I don't know if the thieves were there at that time, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out. We're currently in the process of installing cameras. This had to have been somebody that lives nearby us and can monitor how often we're there. Update. So we did catch a car pulling in like it was scoping the place out. The people inside never got out, but they left. We asked a few of my fiancé's family members about it, and that was to our detriment. One of them went and spread the word that we have cameras, and somebody in the neighborhood who owned the vehicle that we caught on camera slipped up and said they already knew things had been stolen. This, to me, is basically a confession, because we hadn't told anybody about the robbery until the incident with the car we caught on camera. So now more people than necessary know, and we probably won't catch the person who did it. We still turn the footage into the police though. Maybe they can dig up some background info if we're lucky. This might be a little bit long, but it still gives me nightmares. I'm a 21-year-old female. I drive from Miami to Daytona Beach near Orlando almost every other week. I make sure to fuel up before I start off, but this one day, this one most unfortunate day, I did not. I left Daytona around 12 a.m., driving back to Miami. I drive a black Mustang 40th anniversary. I was literally flooring it back home through the I-95. The entire route was pretty much empty, other than a few trucks and small cars here and there. I was jamming to some good music, not paying too much attention to what was going on with my fuel tank. Well, around 2:30 or 2:45 a.m., the low fuel warning popped up suddenly. I saw it and started looking for the nearest exit, which just so happened to be Boynton Beach. I've never been there, and I have no idea and still don't about how the area is. I took the exit and saw there was a Circle K right off of it. I felt a little bit relieved, because now at least I wouldn't run out of fuel smack dab in the middle of nowhere. With barely any fuel left in my car, I pulled up to this gas station. It was totally empty. I couldn't even see a single car inside or even outside on the road. There were no people, other than one tall man in a red-colored jacket walking around near the side of the gas station store where all the parkings were. Fortunately, he was not very close to the pump I was at. I was a little bit scared by him, but I usually try to shake my fear off by telling myself that it's just nothing. The man at this point was looking at the ground, but began kind of walking in the general direction of my car. I was still inside, contemplating whether I should get out or stay inside. Usually, I would have just gotten out and fueled, not being scared at all. But that day, something in my gut told me to lock the door right away and wait inside until he either went away or walked past my car. As time continued on, the guy was now just a few feet away from my car, still not looking directly at me. I was trying to tell myself in my head, it's okay, he doesn't even care that I'm here. I should just get out and do my business. Just then, my worst fear came to life. This man looked straight up at me and dashed towards the driver's side door. He grabbed the handle and tried to open it. At this point, it was around 3 a.m., with no other people in the general vicinity. I literally froze for a second and thought I was going to die. He yanked the door handle several times, trying to get it open. Thankfully, I somehow managed to get my senses back. I turned the car on and floored it out of there. He didn't even let go of the door handle until I started the car and hit the gas pedal. I'm just thankful that despite the low fuel, my car still started up and drove off. I had nothing on me to defend myself. Not a single thing other than a plastic fork I got from Panda Express earlier that day. I still can't get over this whole experience. It just scares the living shit out of me. This is my first time posting here. This event happened in 2018. I worked at SeaTac Airport, which I think is probably still the smallest international airport I've ever seen. The airport was so small that your workstation almost forces you to work alongside with other jobs. In this case, I worked in sales, and we were stationed next to the wheelchair lane, which usually had one wheelchair pusher at a time. Now keep in mind, I was only 19 years old when this incident happened. I would say I'm a sweet person who goes out of my way to start conversations with people that looked bored, since I worked night shifts at the airport. There was practically nobody flying, and there would be more workers around than passengers. Therefore, we meet Mike, around the age of 20 to 23. Mike was one of the wheelchair pushers who looked completely out of it, zoned out, didn't seem very talkative. Me and Mike worked side by side in the lanes. He would usually come to give the person in the wheelchair lane a lunch break, and then proceed to go back to pushing people in wheelchairs throughout the airport. The 30 minutes we saw each other every day was completely awkward and quiet, until one day, he overheard me and my coworker's conversation about depression. He propped his chair up and said, "Yeah, I agree with you. Depression really sucks." And that's when I realized, oh man, this kid doesn't just look depressed, but probably is himself. Now, I didn't know how that small interaction changed our perspective on Mike. He would join our conversation and even went out of his way to say hello and give us a hug while he finds us throughout the airport. One day, my lead suggested Mike and I should go out for tacos, since we both kept complaining how nothing opens late at night and we were always hungry. I'd known Mike for almost a month now, and his depression-filled body started filling with joy every time we would find out we were stationed next to each other. At this rate, we laughed it off, saying, "No way, it would be too weird if we went alone together." He looked at me and said, "You know, I actually know this amazing Mexican spot that's nearby if you're actually hungry. They serve the best fish tacos." Now, knowing the fat ass I am, I did not decline. I loved eating late at night, and Mike never gave me stranger danger vibes. I agreed because I didn't see the harm in going out to get tacos before I conked out. We exchanged our numbers, and I headed home before him since I clocked out an hour before he does. When I arrived home, I was getting dressed to go eat out. The plan was just to meet up at the spot since the Mexican spot ended up being only 5 minutes away from my house. I got a text from Mike saying he wants to pick me up. I kept refusing because I had just finally gotten my driver's license, and the place was only 5 minutes away from my home. After almost 40 minutes of us insisting how we're gonna get there, I finally gave in to have him pick me up, which I would later regret very much. I was a fairly big girl, like in the 200 zone compared to Mike, who was very thin and short, so I wasn't worried if he attempted anything with me. I told him to just pick me up along a street farther away because I didn't really want him to know where exactly I lived just yet. His beat-up trash Toyota pulled up, and we headed to the Mexican spot. We got our food. It was actually pretty amazing. So amazing we went for seconds, and had a good talk watching the soap opera on the TV. After we were done, we get back into his car, where he was supposed to drop me off back at home. He looked over at me and said, "Can we talk in private? I know a good spot." I kindly refused and told him it was already 2 a.m. and we should just get back home. "I know it's late, but I just have a lot going on in my life, and you're the only person that's really hung out with me like this." Being the kind of idiot I am, I said sure. Already seeing him drive down the road he did, I noticed so many red flags. The streetlights started to disappear, and his mood and tone started to change. There was a completely different atmosphere around Mike that emerged. He started telling me all these things. I sure do hate the society about women nowadays. They all have this stupid standard. I hate them. I hate them! I was very startled. Did I just find a woman hater? Mike never rubbed me off as that kind of guy. He just started to scream every time he attempted to talk to women. They would blatantly reject him. And me, a woman, was now a dummy he was projecting all his female hate talk onto. I was actually too stunned to speak, because he became a whole different person. We arrived at this abandoned skate park in the middle of God knows where. He told me to get out. I listened, and here we are at 2 a.m., sitting on cold concrete in freezing temperatures. He goes on and tells me how he hates all women, and he would lie to his passengers he took in his wheelchairs and tell them he was from the UK. I was overwhelmed. What the fuck was happening right now? He then talked to me in this British accent from there on how he would give his life up for God, and God was the only thing keeping him chained down. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, God would want me to castrate myself since he doesn't want me touching or being near a female creature for my safety. I was completely quiet the whole time, confused, questioning how much of a fool I was to even think that I thought this guy liked me. I was completely wrong. After 30 minutes, I was getting cold, since being this female creature I was anemic. I told him I would like to go home now. He simply told me, no. I felt like I was in a movie because I couldn't believe what was happening. After he noticed I was shaking my leg, he then said, I guess we can proceed back to the car at least. When we got back to his car, a miracle happened. My mother decided to call me just then. I was expecting her to scream at me, asking where I was and to come home like she usually does. But this time, she just spoke in a calm voice. Where are you? She spoke in Vietnamese. I told her I was going out for food with a coworker. She said, okay, have fun, and hung up. Again, in disbelief that she didn't care where I was at almost 3 a.m. for the first time in forever. I did a little bit of a lie. What? "Oh, you want me to come home right now?" "Oh, okay, I'll start heading there right now." I pretended to hang up the phone. I looked at Mike and said, "Sorry, my mom wants me home right now." He began beating the wheel and sighed this annoyingly loud sigh, which gave me a jump scare for a moment. He started his car and just sat there in silence, grinning the whole time. He eventually started driving and pulled out his phone and literally threw it at me. "Open it," he said. Already exhausted and still not believing everything that was happening, my eyes grew fixated on the over 100 notes in his phone. "What is this?" I asked. He said it was songs and poems he wrote. He looked at me. "Go ahead, pick one." I don't remember what the notes said exactly. Only keywords I saw were betrayal and woman that stood out. "Ah, that one. Would you like me to sing it for you?" I straight up said no. He continued to sing it for me anyway. The worst part was he was singing it in this fake British accent. The whole drive he was just singing me about how God's plan was to stray him from the human race so he could overcome himself. I was zoned out. It didn't feel real, almost like a dream. My sense of danger got lower due to how exhausted I was. I was listening to this man who wanted to eradicate the female species off the face of the earth and how our judgment day was coming. He dropped me off on my street and even had the audacity to say, "I had such a lovely time with you, darling." I slammed his door shut and ran down my street before he had a chance to start up his car. After this whole incident, I ignored his messages, which he texted me 2 pages long how he was sorry and how he believed God was there to put us together. How my Asianness was the only thing holding him back from committing real love to me. I stood in the back of my station to avoid talking to him. He would follow me back to my break room. Thankfully, my manager was there and yelled at him to piss off before he called security. Eventually, he did get the hint that I was not interested, but instead he started to stare me down every second he was in the same station with me. Thankfully, during that time, I found a second job, and my whole schedule was changed. I never had to see him at work again after that. I saw him once at Target, but I quickly ran back to my car before he even had the chance to walk up to me. I later found out Mike was living with one of my lesbian coworkers on their couch. I told her everything he said and did. She was completely shocked. She had never seen Mike like that. He was just a very quiet boy who would crack a joke here and there. I advised her to keep a close eye on him. She thanked me for relaying all the information, and eventually he was forced to move out later in the month. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the content of this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you do decide you like my content enough to subscribe, please be sure to hit the bell button right next to the subscribe button and turn notifications to all so you can be notified of every video I post in the future. If you don't feel like doing that though, I post a video nearly every day, so you can just come back every now and then and check up on what you missed. If you guys have any criticisms on what I can do better or any feedback on the stories in the video, please be sure to leave them in the comments below, as I always enjoy reading all the comments and I try to give them hearts and respond when I can. If you guys would like to reach me for any reason, or you would like to send in a story to be read, you can go ahead and take a look in the description below the video. You'll find a link to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the name of the story is if it has one, what type of story it is if it has a theme, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. Last but not least, I also run 2 other channels, Mr. Blue Skies and Darkest Hour, where I do true crime videos and dark documentaries respectively. If that kind of content sounds interesting to you, why not go ahead and check it out and see if it is for you. Aside from that though, guys, I think that's pretty much it for now, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.